It was a Friday night in New York City. A young woman was being attacked outside her apartment building. She screamed. She fought back. She called out for help. And 38 of her neighbors heard every word. Not one of them came outside. Some watched from their windows. Some turned off their lights. Some went back to bed. The attack lasted over half an hour. By the time a single person finally called the police, Kitty Genovese was already dead. The year was 1964. And the story that followed would change how psychologists understood human behavior forever. Your first instinct is probably to judge those neighbors. You tell yourself you would have done something. You would have called. You would have gone outside. You would have been different. But the real answer is far stranger than that, because the science says you almost certainly would have done exactly what they did, and the reason why reaches all the way back to the wiring of your ancient brain. Here is what actually happens inside you when you witness an emergency. Your nervous system does not start with action, it starts with a question. Is this actually dangerous? Because your brain is an extremely efficient machine and it does not want to waste energy on a false alarm. So before it triggers you to move, it looks for confirmation. It scans the environment. It checks other people. This is not a flaw. It is a feature. For hundreds of thousands of years, your ancestors survived by reading social cues. If the person next to you was calm, the threat was probably not real. If the group was frozen, you froze too. The crowd was your early warning system. Your instinct to look at others before acting is ancient and deeply wired. The problem is that in a modern emergency, everyone is doing the same thing at the same time. Every person is looking at every other person, waiting for a signal. And because no one moves first, everyone concludes that nothing must be wrong. The crowd produces calm. The calm produces inaction. And the person who needs help is surrounded by a ring of frozen observers, each one certain that someone else must be handling it. Psychologists John Darley and Bibb Latané identified this mechanism in 1968, just a few years after Kitty Genovese died. They called it diffusion of responsibility. The more people present in an emergency, the less any single individual feels personally responsible for acting. It is not that people stop caring, it is that the responsibility gets divided so many ways that each person's share becomes almost nothing. Darley and Latané tested this in a now-famous experiment. They placed participants alone in a room and had them communicate with others through an intercom. One of the other voices, which was actually a recording, began to simulate a seizure. When participants believed they were the only other person on the line, 95% of them went to help immediately. When they believed there were 4 other people on the line, only 31% responded. The same emergency, the same sounds, the same suffering. But the crowd made it almost disappear. You need to sit with that number. When you believed you were alone, you acted almost every time. When you believed others were watching, you acted less than a third of the time. This is not weakness. This is your social brain operating exactly as designed. You are built for group coordination. You are built to synchronize with others. When others do not move, a deep part of your mind interprets that as information, not as cowardice, but as data. The group says this is not an emergency, and your brain, which trusts the group more than it trusts your own individual perception, adjusts accordingly. Psychologist Stanley Milgram explored a related piece of this puzzle. He called it pluralistic ignorance. This is the phenomenon where everyone in a group privately believes something is wrong, but assumes that because everyone else appears calm, the calm must be correct. Each person suppresses their private alarm. Each person performs normalcy, and the group arrives at a shared illusion of safety that no individual actually feels. You have experienced this. You have been in a meeting where a plan felt wrong, looked around the room, seen everyone nodding, and nodded yourself. You have been on a plane during strange turbulence, watched the flight attendants' faces, decided that if they were not panicking, you should not either. You have been in a crowd and felt uneasy, then told yourself you were being paranoid because nobody else seemed worried. That is pluralistic ignorance operating in real time. Every person privately afraid, publicly calm, each one reinforcing the illusion that everyone else is fine. Now here is the piece that makes this harder to accept. Research by psychologist Bibb Latané showed that this effect is not weakened by intelligence, by empathy, or by moral conviction. People who score high on altruism tests still freeze in crowds. People who describe themselves as the type who would always help still fail to act when surrounded by others. The bystander effect does not care about your character. It bypasses character entirely. It operates at a level below conscious decision-making, because what the research actually shows is that action in an emergency is not a product of who you are. It is a product of whether your brain receives a clear enough signal to override the social suppression mechanism. In most emergencies, that signal never comes clearly enough. The situation is ambiguous, the crowd is quiet, and the window closes. Here is something even more unsettling. Research published by social psychologist Mark Levine in 2011 found that increasing the size of a crowd does not just reduce helping. It changes what people perceive. In larger groups, people were more likely to describe an ambiguous situation as not an emergency at all. The crowd does not just reduce action, it rewrites reality. Your perception of whether help is needed gets filtered through the lens of everyone around you. You are not reading the situation and then checking what others think. You are using what others think to decide what the situation is. And this changes everything about how you understand your own judgment. You like to believe you see clearly. You like to believe you would respond honestly to what is in front of you. But your brain does not actually receive raw reality. It receives a processed, socially filtered version of reality, shaped by the behavior of everyone nearby. In a crowd, your eyes see a person in distress. Your brain cross-references that image with 30 faces that show no alarm. And the output is probably fine. This is why researchers now recommend something specific if you are ever in an emergency and you need help from a crowd. Do not shout for help in general. Do not look around hoping someone will act. Instead, pick one specific person. Point at them. Make eye contact. Say, "You, in the blue shirt, call 911 right now." The moment the responsibility is no longer shared, the mechanism breaks. The diffusion evaporates. That person becomes the one person on the intercom who knows they are alone. Individuation is the antidote. Specificity cuts through the fog. It is worth thinking about where else this operates in your life. Because the bystander effect does not only live in emergencies on city streets, it lives in every meeting where the bad idea goes unchallenged because no one wants to be first to speak. It lives in every comment section where people scroll past something harmful because no one else seems to be flagging it. It lives in every organization where a problem everyone privately sees persists because everyone assumes someone else is handling it. The crowd is not evil. The crowd is not cowardly. The crowd is just executing ancient software in a modern context. A context it was never designed for. Your brain evolved in small groups where the social calibration system worked, where the calm of one trusted person told you something real, where diffusion was rare because the group was small enough that responsibility could not evaporate across 30 faces. Today you live in cities of millions. You pass strangers on the street, you share spaces with people you will never see again, and your ancient calibration system keeps running, scanning faces, reading expressions, waiting for a signal that will never come clearly because the crowd is too large, too anonymous, too disconnected from any individual need. Kitty Genovese died on a sidewalk in Queens. And 38 people, none of them monsters, watched from their windows, each one waiting for someone else to act first. Each one running a program written long before New York City existed, each one human. Tonight, if you walk past someone who needs help, your brain is going to do exactly what those 38 people's brains did. It is going to scan the crowd. It is going to read the calm. It is going to interpret the silence as safety. And it is going to wait. The only question is whether you know that now. Because the moment you understand the mechanism, you are no longer fully inside it. You can see the fog, you can name it, you can override it. Not because you are different from those 38 people, but because now, unlike them, you know exactly what your brain is doing in the dark.